Okay.
All right, shoot, Gary. Go.
Wait, we're not ready yet.
Oh, we're not? Oh, I thought you were
Oh, you're right. It has been 5 minutes. Okay. Terry, your position is what?
It's a sandwich.
Okay. And who's going to argue that it's its own thing? Jeff.
Well, we both are on that
You both
team.
are. Okay, you guys are both on this
So
team.
it's you two against us two,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
Did you say sandwich?
I believe it's a sandwich.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would think that.
So, who would like to start this conversation?
It has a bun. A bun is a piece of bread. Bread makes up a sandwich or a roll. So it's a hot dog bun.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sandwich.
Huh.
That's it. And you put lots of condiments on it, like you do any other sandwich. You put lots of stuff on the sandwich to make it your own.
Okay. Tom?
Why is it is its own thing? There's a
It's
thousand
its own
different,
sandwich.
it's its own thing. There's 1,000 different kinds of sandwiches out there, but you can only have one hot dog that has the actual hot dog in it, and it stands by itself. There's 1,000 different kinds of tacos out there.
Sure.
But
Soft shell, hard shell,
Yeah, soft shell. hard.
mini, large.
There's only one thing that you can look at. And
Oh,
call
you know,
hot
cheese dog, chili dog. They're all different
But
kinds
it's
of
all a
sandwiches.
dog. It's not a sandwich.
It's a sandwich
It all
dog.
involves a dog. But you could put.
Am I gonna have to walk out on this?
Terry.
I think the bun for me was the linchpin because it's not a bread or bun that any other sandwich uses.
A hoagie uses. Sometimes a person can use a hoagie bun.
I mean, I like to use a nice brioche hot dog bun.
Yeah.
Right. So a bratwurst can be eaten with a roll, a hard roll, or a hot dog bun.
So let me tell you something. If I put 2 pieces of bread together,
I've
put
done
some
that.
meat in it,
Yeah.
can you call that a hot dog?
No, I call it a sandwich.
So, well, I love how all of you guys with
Would you
pure
call it
opinion.
roast beef? No.
Pure opinion here. I will say in last July 2nd, actually, the U.S. Department of Agriculture came out and stated this. It says, a sandwich is a meat or poultry filling between 2 slices of bread, a bun, or a biscuit.
Thank you very much.
So, by that definition, a hot
The
dog
government's that long.
is
Ever.
a sandwich. I mean,
Everybody.
But who made the USDA the ultimate authority?
that's
my
just
question.
one
Yeah, we're gonna appeal
viewpoint.
to authority.
That's
We
just
do.
one viewpoint. We can look right here.
They're never wrong.
Now, Washington Post, on the other hand, they argue that a hot dog is a taco and a steak is a salad, and that doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Then it's a taco?
Now, I could see a taco because it's a holdable meat in some sort of floury container.
Is that making a gyros?
It could be more of a gyro. Yeah, it's like
I mean, a gyro is like a sandwich, right?
Yeah, but let's be honest. The Washington Post is a rag by that Rupert Murdoch, so we don't get involved with him.
Well, and not only that, but I'm surprised the WAPO did not talk about the tacos identified.
As a female gender, or what the pronoun was.
Well, I
So the whole point of this, and I know it seems silly, is to kind of show what apologetics is. So if you you'll flip to the next slide, and I will give you what my definition of apologetics is. And Jeff, you were there during the panel discussion too, where we kind of formulated, we took what is our understanding of apologetics, what is biblical apologetics, what has been maybe the apologetical trend of the last 200 years, and what can we take all of that information and boil it down to one simple sentence.
And who really gives a rip?
Well, Mary does.
Mary does. But here's what we came down to, okay?
Okay.
After our panel discussions. Apologetics is a conversation that takes physical evidence and personal experience to cause the skeptic to wonder. So, for example, when Terry was just using his opinion about the hot dog being a sandwich, His goal is to maybe get you guys to think, well, maybe he's right. Maybe a hot dog is a sandwich. So Terry operated from personal experience. Now, I went ahead and used the internet, so I maybe have some sort of physical evidence. I had the USDA's definition of what makes a sandwich, and I used physical evidence to create my sandwich. You see how that works? And maybe, just maybe, if you put Terry's personal experience and my physical evidence together, that might maybe get one of you two thinking, I don't know, maybe a hot dog is a sandwich. All right, and that is kind of an apologetic on what makes a hot dog. What is a hot dog? And that's what we're looking to do here. You know, a lot of people think apologetics is just this academic or scholarly exercise. It's a debate. It's an argument. But it's really none of those. It can be, and if that is what is needed to get the skeptic to be intrigued, to get the doubter to wonder, then there's an avenue for that. But apologetics is something that we see in the Old Testament, we see it in the New Testament, we see it all throughout the history of the church, and it's fizzled out because it's become just about who's smarter, or winning a conversation, or winning a debate. And that is really what we need to change, because apologetics is so much more than that. It's a conversation, and it uses both sides of the coin, right? And Jesus tells us that we are to love the Lord your God with your heart, your soul, and your mind. That means, heart and soul, there's your physical experience, right? Your personal experience, where you're experiencing the life-saving truth that comes to us through Jesus Christ, okay? But your mind, what is that? That is our thoughts, those are our actions, those are our words, our communications with others. And that is also knowing why we believe what we believe. And we're going to get to that here in a minute. So if you guys flip the next page to the next slide, you're going to see something really simple. It's a 5-step process of what is apologetics. And this is really good for you to build personally, individually. Again, all of this starts vertically before it goes horizontally. And if we look at the what, it might seem pretty trivial, right? We know what we believe. Like, you know what you believe, Terry?
Yes.
You believe a hot dog is a sandwich?
For now.
But before we can preach and teach apologetically, we have to actually know what we believe, right? When you look at the group of believers in Jude, he's telling them, like, I didn't want to write this, but you guys have let these people creep in unaware. These hypocrites, these blasphemies, these heretics have snuck into the church, and because this group of believers they were not, their relationship with Christ wasn't objective. Okay, they only maybe believed in certain areas or certain scenarios in their life, and they did not know what they believed. And because they did not know what they believed, they were so easily pushed off the right path. You know what I'm saying? It's like this. If we are not consistently being reminded of what we believe, then we'll find ourselves making 1 degree changes, these small little changes off of the true understanding of the gospel, biblical understanding of the gospel. And the next thing you know is we've made a 90-degree turn, and what we think is true theology or true Christ living has been completely skewed because we don't really know what we believe. There's another situation that's pretty similar. Paul writes in Galatians. He goes, I'm astonished that you are so quickly deserting him who called you in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel. That's Galatians 1:6. It's right in the opening statement. And we just talked about Galatians just last fall, or this past summer and fall, and how Paul's like, you guys gotta wake up. And why is it? Why were they drifting away so quickly from the gospel they said yes to? How is it that we've seen so many Christians say yes, so many people say yes to Jesus, and then it looks like they got pushed down the hill because they don't know what they believe? Okay? That's the first foundation in apologetics, is you have to know what you believe. And the second one is the why. All right, so when we know what we believe, our confidence in Christianity becomes objectively true. In other words, when our what becomes the foundation of our lives, Christianity, the gospel, Christ is no longer something we subjectively believe, rather our faith is permanent. It's objective. It's not just convenient, it's always there. How many people only ask for prayers when they are sick or hurting? Or how many times have we seen skeptics or doubters have someone in the hospital and they're like, give me your good vibes and your thoughts and your prayers, and I don't know, I just want everything. Because they're so erratically lost in their trauma that they're like, we'll take anything at this point, right? So that is subjective faith, or subjective Christianity, when you're only choosing to be a Christian when it's convenient for you. There's a saying, if all you have is Jesus, would you still say yes? Like if all you get is Jesus, would you still say yes to a relationship with God? If you didn't get any blessings, if you didn't get any comfort, if you didn't get anything, even maybe eternal life, if all you had was Jesus, would you still say yes? That's the kind of objective faith, that you so love someone who died for you that it doesn't matter anything else. And so when we know our what, and we have the why, the reason why we know that is so that our faith becomes objective. Jeff, when I was creating this workshop, and I got to the second point, I don't remember when you said this, I think it was a few years ago, but Reagan was learning to drive. And you were
Still working on it.
still working on it. But you were talking about how when you guys were driving, she kept looking back in her rear view mirror, like every 10 seconds. I think this is when we were doing Joshua. And you tied that in, and you said, sometimes it might seem trivial or repetitive when we're always saying the gospel, when we always mention Christ's sacrifice, death, and resurrection every Sunday. We have to. And just like Reagan looking in that rear view mirror over and over and over again, we have to be constantly reminded, right? Until that becomes so secondhand in nature. It's all connected. And that is the second, that's the heart behind the why. We have our what, right? We have the what, and then that's our why. We have to constantly be reminded so that our faith becomes objective. And Reagan, hopefully, after, driving and learning and kind of like feeling the road, reading the room, maybe she doesn't look in her rearview mirror as much because her confidence in driving and knowing what's happening around her has become objective, not subjective. I don't know. That was just really, really impactful to me. I mean, held on to it for a few years. All right. Number 3, experience. Now, this is a little bit different. I don't mean experience like we're full on jumping into the world when we're building our apologetic. I mean, create an environment where apologetics as a spiritual discipline can improve. So it's very much what we're doing here. This is creating a space where we can practice and develop our apologetic before we walk outside with it. All right? I don't know about you guys. My biggest fear is that I will preach something heretical, thinking that it is true or blasphemous, and someone's gonna go to hell because of it. Like that, literally stresses me out all the time when somebody comes and asks me something. And that is where the experience, the training, the building up, just like building a muscle, just like learning how to make tacos, it's all an experience, and you have to create that safe environment, right? Like, I would not let my kid or kids make cookies for other people unless I've made a couple batches with them first, because it wouldn't be safe. It would not be safe for other people to digest those cookies, to eat those cookies. So, I have an idea. I don't know how true it is. I haven't dove into it too much, but I really do think that that's what Jude was doing in his letter. I think he was creating an opportunity for those believers who had been struggling with remembering the what and the why of what they believe, and giving them that opportunity to remember, look at these miracles, look how God has moved, look how he's provided. Because he kind of just goes through this Old Testament survey juggernaut all the way to Christ. And I think he was developing that space. So as we grow apologetically, we have to create that environment so we can experience what it is to be apologetic. All right, so we've got two more. I'm trying to not be so long-winded, but I'm like Terry. Sometimes I just like
Watch it. Just keep moving.
All right, so number 4.
Keep the train moving.
Come on now.
Number 4,
You don't
logic.
have to do.
Me too. Number 4, the 4th step into creating an apologetic is to prepare. This is done 2 ways. One, we have to have, just like a Bible toolbox, we have to have an apologetic toolbox. I've brought some of my tools here today, and we're going to look at those later. But we also need to stay present in the skepticism around us. And that's one of the things I love about Renaissance, is we have a lot of doubters and a lot of skeptics in our church. And I know that Todd and Terry you guys both deal a lot with our, recovering, transitioning, homelessness, addicts. So you guys get to see and build relationships with individuals that my question is God actually good? Does he really care about me? If he does, why am I homeless? Why am I struggling with this? Why can't I keep a job? Why hasn't this happened? And so we have this relationship already set in place because of the location and the heart of Renaissance, where we get to be, sit, live, participate. Just like when Jesus went to Zacchaeus' house. We get to participate with maybe the skeptics, So that's the fourth thing. And just to add on to it, I'm a basketball coach. I coach basketball at LSA, and I love it. But if I, as a coach, didn't attend the practices and became so focused in taking stats or whatever during the game that I wasn't paying attention, I could not tell those girls, nor would I necessarily have the authority, what they need to do to be better, right? If I'm not paying attention at practice, if I'm not paying attention at the games, how is it that I can tell them they need a rebound when I'm not even paying attention? So likewise, if we're not living and experiencing life in the community of our skeptics, then where is our authority to challenge them, to challenge their doubts, right? So it just makes logical sense. If I want to help train basketball players to be better players, I'm going to be present and watching them and figuring out where they struggle. And if we're going to be present in preaching apologetically, teaching apologetically, then we have to be and do life with the skeptics around us. So, and this is the last talking point before we're going to have a breakout, and you guys are going to get to hopefully put all of this to good use.
The rubber meets the road.
Rubber meets the road is the last part, is defending. And I don't mean defending in, fists and words and stances. Now this is going to go way back, Jeff. We were doing Genesis. It was January or February 2018. I don't know. But it was that series that we did on Genesis that made me want to start all of this academic journey in scripture and theology and the Bible. And I was so upset. I remember I was crying because someone said no to Jesus, and I was so offended. And I asked you a question. I said, how do you not get upset when people belittle Jesus or make fun of Jesus or say no after you've invested all this time and energy for their eternity? And you said, God's big enough. He doesn't need us to be offended for him. He doesn't need us to fight for him. And little did
I don't remember saying it, but I believe it.
I don't even know if Jeff. I don't even know if you knew, but what you were saying was so apologetical in that moment. At that point in time, I had no idea what apologetics was. Yeah. And now here we are 4 years later, and I've realized that this is such an intricate part of our lives. We just don't know it, and because we haven't put a name to it. And I know apologetics is a big, scholarly sounding word, but because we haven't put a name to a face, we haven't been able to grow the spiritual discipline. We haven't been able to work at apologetics because we've been maybe ignorant or oblivious to the spiritual practice that is apologetics. So when it comes time to defend, we don't need to take offense because God can handle it. We don't need to, scream, get heated, which I'm still working on. I'm a work in progress, right, Terry? I can get a little red in the face. And it's not a bad thing to be passionate.
You're too young.
I'm too young.
What can I say?
But we need to do it with gentleness and respect. 1 Peter 3:15 is like the apologetic slogan. Always be prepared to give a reason, also known as defense, for the hope that lies within you. The Greek word for reason is apologia, which is where we get apologetics. And most people stop there at 3:15. But if you continue reading in 3:16, he says, yet do it with gentleness and respect. And he goes on to finish, because if we can be apologetic with gentleness and respect, then no false charge can be brought against us. People can't say I punched you in the face if my hands were in my pocket, right? So it's a similar thing. If we can speak with gentleness and respect, no charge can come against us in that aspect. So I need a volunteer to read 2 Corinthians 4:1-5. You can use the Bible app.
What version?
This is ESV that I have right here.
Okay.
You said 4:1-5?
Yeah.
Excuse me. 2 Corinthians 4:1-5.
Stop.
Stand for the reading of that. Therefore, having this ministry, by the mercy of God, we do not lose heart. But we have renounced disgraceful, underhanded ways. We refuse to practice cunning or to tamper with God's word, but by the open statement of the truth, we would commend ourselves to everyone's conscience in the sight of God. And even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing. In their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. And maybe let me go back and read verse 4 again.
Yeah.
In their case, the God of this world, lowercase God,
Mm-hmm.
right? The lowercase God, the false God of this world, has kept their minds or their eyes from seeing the light of the gospel of Jesus. So, is that it?
In 5.
And 5. Oh, and 5. For what we proclaim is not ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, with ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake.
Okay, so there's a couple things I want to unpack there. One is we have to refuse to practice cunning or underhanded, sleight of hand, bait and switch ways, which I myself have been a part of. Jesus Jude. This is a conversation for another day, but trunk or treats where we'll provide a safe place to come get candy, but you have to sit through our 20-minute gospel presentation. It's like a time share meeting. The stuff like that. That's what Paul's saying. We can't be doing that. We have been given this ministry by the grace of God, and as such, we have to remember that what we say and how we go about saying it is what's going to build another person or non-believer's perception of Jesus. Okay? It's what we say and how we say it is what they use to create maybe this idea of God, this idea of Christianity. And that's what's going to get them to be.
But in defense of the trunk or treat, I never did it because my kids were way too old for that. But I know parents now are worried more about safety than
That is
anything.
true. Now, I'm not saying don't
And
have
they're
a trunk
saying
or
if the
treat.
church can do it, more power to them. We shouldn't
Yes.
require them to sit through a 20-minute
Yes,
video.
what I'm saying is let's do trunk or treats, but it's either just a trunk or treat or we're going to tell them ahead of time we're also going to do this.
Let's give
But
them
it
a
used to be
little
like, you can win a bike, but we're only going to announce the bike winners after you say this. That's what I'm saying. It's
Sounds
that-
like Harlem Community Church right
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
We're going to give away a car,
right,
but you got to come every week for 8 weeks.
right.
Right, but that's it. That's what Paul's saying.
Backwards. You
Here we go, Sunday.
You come every Sunday, you give it, and you have a Bible, you have to read it, and you go to prayer meeting on Wednesday night.
But
You get
that's
patch for your cubby.
Yes, ooh.
yeah. So that's it. That's the worldly ways that Paul wants us to stay away from. And why is that? Because when we do that, when we do our ministry the way the world does things, then we tamper God's word. And that should be our greatest fear. I know it's my greatest fear. But there is something right here in the middle that might have taken you off guard, and I'm glad you repeated verse 4, where it says, to those the God of this world has veiled their eyes or has caused their minds to be shut. And since you have your phone out, would you like to hop all the way back to Isaiah 44, 6 through 8? Because this is what Paul is referencing, these verses.
So his statement in 2 Corinthians is, he's quoting Isaiah.
Yes.
44, 6 through 8.
Yes.
Thus says the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts. I am the first,
I think
and
it's 6 through 8. No, it's not 6 through 8. I want you to read that, but it's 18 through 20. But we gotta get some context.
Okay, you want me to stop?
Nope, start over. Start over, 44.
Okay.
6 through
Isaiah 44, 6 through
8. Yep.
I am the first and I am the last. Besides me, there is no God. Who is like me? Let him proclaim it. Let him declare it and set it before me, since I appointed an ancient people. Let them declare what is to come and what will happen. Fear not, nor be afraid. Have I not told you from of old and declared it? And you are my witnesses. Is there a God besides me? Question mark. There is no rock. I know not any.
So right there, we see the Lord telling Isaiah to tell the people, you guys are my witnesses. Okay, the world is already in sync. We saw lowercase g, lowercase g God. Okay, and from here, the reason why I just took out a couple of verses is because he talks about the people who are creating idols and worshiping the idols, and these idols become their everything. And then this is what happens when they realize the idols fail them. Can you go down to 18 through 20? And this is what Paul was referencing.
They know not, nor do they discern. For he has shut their eyes so that they cannot see, and their hearts so that they cannot understand. And no one considers, nor is there knowledge or discernment, to say, half of it I burned in the fire, I also baked bread on its coals, I roasted meat, and I have eaten. And shall I make the rest of it an abomination? Shall I fall down before a block of wood? He feeds on ashes, a deluded heart has led him astray, and he cannot deliver himself or say, is there not a lie in my right hand?
So they are blinded not by Christ, not by God. They are blinded by their lowercase g that they have created. And so for us, that we should realize then there's always going to be skeptics and doubts and doubters, and we're not going to get them all. We're not going to save anybody, firstly, but in that sense is we will not have every single person that we come into contact with and share the gospel and defend the gospel. We will not have 100% success rate. And I think that is huge for us to remember, is that we are going to fail. We're going to struggle, but that doesn't mean you give it up. And I think that's what's happened in the last couple centuries, is apologetics has become so hard because it's so focused on winning the argument, and that if it's not winnable, then we're just going to ignore it. And so we see here with Paul, what he is saying is we have to respect this ministry, and we are the declarers of this, and we have the ability to either present the righteous image of God, or to tamper with God. And it all depends on how we do it, where we do it, what's our methodology when we're doing it. And by the way, know this, that some people's eyes and minds will be shut, just like the prophet Isaiah said, because they have become so self-involved with their artificial God they have created. And so when we're defending the gospel, we also have to keep that in mind. And
I don't necessarily agree with your earlier statement regarding the Renaissance church not applying this to Christianity.
I'm not saying we're not applying to Christianity. I'm just saying Sunday sermons lack.
Come on. It's like if you were getting up every Sunday and giving a sermon, there would always be someone who has doubts, questions, or being a skeptic.
Right.
And we're going to have that in our world, in our congregation, every single Sunday,
Oh,
no matter
absolutely.
who preaches and no matter what is brought to their attention.
Right, well, so, and we can talk later, Terry, off of this recording about, so the problem statement, when it's developed, getting a doctor of ministry, you have to develop a problem statement at your church. I am a very unique enigma. I am one of the few doctor of ministry candidates who is a licensed pastor, but not on staff at my church. So it's a little unique, and I met with Jeff before I even created my problem statement, and it transformed from a lot of things. And so this whole thing, just because it's a problem statement, doesn't mean it's this massive glaring hole. What I'm saying is apologetical elements or motives. It doesn't have to be just an apologetic sermon. It's when we say something, we're also saying here's maybe some physical evidence that backs up that statement. Okay.
How can you give physical evidence to a Christ that's died 2,000 years ago?
I know, and that's what we're going to talk about. I have some right there.
You and I both know not everybody's going to read these books and
No.
wait for that physical evidence to hit them in the face.
That's what our job is for,
Okay.
as preachers and teachers.
Well, and the congregation,
Right.
right?
And the congregation, where do they get their lead from?
Well, from our pastor and from the reading of the Bible during the
Right.
week. You can't just get it on that
That's true.
45 minutes.
That's true, but I tell you this. I feel like if Pastor Jeff was at Walmart, which would be, okay, if Pastor Jeff was at Target, or at Kroger,
Not even Walmart.
or at Kroger, and a member of our church, or members, let's just say Jeff has no idea, but half of Target is all of our church members. And they watch Jeff pay for someone's groceries. I guarantee, because they've watched their lead pastor do something, that many of those are going to be more inclined. They're going to follow their leader.
People would rather see a sermon than hear one.
Okay, but listen. All right? So when we as pastors are given this responsibility, and teachers and leaders, we are their shepherd as Christ shepherds us, right?
Okay.
They're going to follow Jeff's lead, right? They're going to follow the lead actions of our pastors. And so, yes, they're not going to get everything they need on a Sunday sermon. But if we want to see our congregation grow in evangelism and in apologetics, then we need to give both evangelism and apologetics from the pulpit.
It has grown over the last few years.
It has. That's wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to break out for
I don't need a break. You need a break?
I was gonna get a refill on my drink.
All right, that'll
Me
work.
too.
Is that good?
Yeah.